or other flotsam and jetsam that would interfere with the Trump tax cuts?
Larry, look, President Trump has a mandate. He came in to do big things. And one of the big things that this administration wants to do is make the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. And that permanency will continue to make the U.S. the #1 economy in the world in terms of growth. We're going to bring down inflation. We're going to cut regulations. And we are going to get the tax cut. The goal is still for them to be made permanent. And as you just said, that we are going to use current policy scoring. And
great.
The scoring that up until a year ago, I was a civilian. I'd been looking at CBO numbers for 35 years in my day job in the investment business, but I never understood the way this scoring worked. And it is tilted towards spending. And that is why the spending has gotten out of control here in Washington.
And as I understand it, you all, from the president on down, but especially you want to lower spending and lower the tax rates. I mean, and what law says you can't do both? Is there some biblical chapter that says you can't do both? Seems to me it's the right thing to do.
Well, Larry, look, the U.S. doesn't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And I think we can up the revenues, we can up the growth, and most importantly, President Trump got elected because of this affordability crisis. And as the discussion, as Carolyn Levitt was questioned recently, what is he going to do for the affordability crisis? Real wage growth for working Americans is the best way to fix this.
So yes, it's not just tariffs, it's the tax cuts, it's cutting regulations that all work in with the tariffs. I mean, let's be real. You can't really walk back inflation. What you can do is increase wages.
Will contain prices.
And I mean, with these tariffs being used as a negotiation tool, we can bring back some jobs as well.
We will cut regulation, but real wages for hourly workers in the first Trump administration, which you're a key part of. Hourly workers' wages, they outdid supervisory wages. And as I've said, Wall Street, where you and I came from, has had it great. Wall Street can continue to do just fine. And now under this administration, it's Main Street's turn.
Let's go back. So now you're the Treasury Secretary. You were a key advisor during the campaign, and you talked about 3-3-3. And Mr. Trump repeated 3-3-3 at a number of occasions. Tell us about 3-3-3. Do you still believe in it? What does it mean? What should people think about?
Larry, I believe now that I'm in the seat, I believe in it more than ever. And look, we didn't get to the debt and deficit problem overnight. And I noticed that Senator Schumer, who is now screaming about debt and deficits, when it was time to break open the piggy bank during COVID, and we moved from rescue to recovery, and the economy was already recovering, and the Democrats blew out the deficits, and they continued doing it right up until this past year. So as I've come into office, we are going to have the highest deficit to GDP we've ever had when we weren't in a war or a recession. So, but 6.7, 6.8% of GDP. So 3 means over the next few years, by the end of President Trump's term, getting the deficit to GDP down to something with a 3 in front of it, 3.5%. That's our long-term average. I think by cutting regulation, by sending the right signals to the market, we can create 3% plus economic growth. Non-inflationary economic growth, which is, again, what you and the economic team and President Trump did last time. And then the 3 million more barrel equivalents of energy produced by the U.S., produced in the U.S. That I had a meeting with Senator Sullivan from.
And that is also part of this whole, putting us right on the right path is, lowering energy crosses, drill, baby, drill. Making sure that we're honestly producing oil in-house because it works out better for us. There's a lot of things that works into this whole plan that Trump got for us, or his economic growth plan, more than just tariffs.
Alaska, and he enjoyed telling me that the Biden administration had sanctioned Alaska more than the Ayatollahs. And part of the big energy agenda is energy dominance and energy security. And I'll tell you that in some of the national security briefings that I've been in recently, a lot of the problems that we're seeing with Iran, with Russia have been these high, not only the high level of the oil prices, but where the oil is coming from. So we're going to get our budget deficit in order. We're going to up growth, and we are going to bring energy production home.
That gets you to about 16 some odd million barrels a day.
Well, no, total liquids. So total liquids, including nat gas, we're at about 21 now, 2021. Yeah. So it'd be about a 15% increase on that base.
Which would get hold down inflation and would drop a lot of prices across the board. President Trump talks about this a lot. He has a very energy-centric view of inflation. And it is true. I mean, oil permeates the whole economy, impacts hundreds of consumer goods and various items that we use almost every day. So this would be a tremendous...
And that is very true. I mean, we use oil for more than just gas. I mean, we use oil for a lot of products that's used on a daily basis. On the daily. I mean, oil is so important. It's such an important material. It's actually funny. So yeah, us actually bringing in our own oil, having a higher supply, therefore we can bring down the price, is going to bring down prices, not just in transportation, but among certain products.
This might be the way to finally slay Bidenflation.
Oh, look, I couldn't agree more. And I believe that, as you said, when we talk about food prices, a big component of that is transport. And the inflation, the actual inflation number, only single digits of that is energy. But in terms of consumers' mind, and especially working class Americans, that the energy component for them is one of the surest indicators for long-term inflation expectations. So if we can get gasoline back down, heating the oil back down, then those consumers not only will be saving money, but their optimism for the future will allow them to rebuild their lives that they had to struggle with over the past 4 years.
And so, Mr. Secretary, let's go back, step back a minute. How do you see today's economy right now? Growth, inflation, interest rates. How do you look at it when you speak with the president, more or less? What are you suggesting to him?
Well, Larry, what we've seen is this gigantic government spending that has been fueling the growth. And I've talked about several times on your show during last year, we're reprivatizing the economy. And we are going to have private sector jobs. We're going to do that, obviously, be in the energy sector. We are going to have smart, safe, and sound bank regulation that gets small, medium banks lending again to Main Street. And we're going to bring manufacturing home again. So I think that we've had...
Yeah, instead of letting China be the manufacturing superpower of the world, like, yeah, we have all the power to do that, but we just don't utilize it. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
An economy that's been supported by the...
We have all the potential to be the manufacturing power in the world, just not utilized. Why? Because we just rather run off with Chinese products and destroy our own economy, and pretty much like destroy our own economy while doing so. I mean, some of y'all people honestly are kind of like traders because y'all y'all care more about how expensive your Chinese made products are than American jobs. Like, you might want to check yourselves.
The government. We are going to slowly torque that back to the private sector. We're going to bring down the government spending, get up the CapEx, and bring good paying jobs home. Because the reason under the Biden administration you haven't gotten real wage growth, the government doesn't give government jobs doesn't give real wage growth because they increase with the inflation level.
So this is basically, you want to reprivatize. What you're saying is you want more business investment, and the business investment creates jobs and higher wages. And that was the point of the Trump tax cuts going back 8 years ago when some of us first started working on them. And the thing that drives me crazy, guy, I hate to revisit this, but this CBO stuff and some weird things I'm hearing from some of our Republican friends. the Trump tax cuts didn't produce growth. Yes, they did. Didn't raise wages. Yes, they did. Didn't enhance productivity. Yes, they did. But hang on a second. Didn't raise revenues. Yes, they did. Why are people panicking on Capitol Hill? Why am I hearing 5-year extensions? As you say, the president hasn't said that. Why are we hearing about why are we hearing the tax cuts blow a hole in the budget deficit? I'd say tax hikes would blow a hole in the budget deficit.
Look, if you want to look at an analysis, what's going to blow not only a hole in the budget deficit, in the economy, and in the lifestyles of working class Americans, if we do not get this tax bill done, and as I said in my Senate hearings, this is pass fail for our side of the aisle, and we will have the largest tax hike in history, and that will be on the people on our side who do not try to move this forward.
Yes, sir. Now, Trump critics say he always wants lower interest rates, and he always wants a cheaper dollar. Do you have a riposte to that? Or maybe that's true, or what do you think?
Well, low interest rates stimulate borrowing, which stimulates economic growth, or at least stimulates entrepreneurship or reinvestment. So, yeah.
Larry,
that's just business 101. That's economics 101 right there, man.
The president wants lower interest rates. And what he sees, in my talks with him, that he and I are focused on the 10-year Treasury and what is the yield of that. So the purpose of lowering interest rates is to lower interest rates. The Federal Reserve, and I will only talk about what they've done, not what I think they should do from now on. They did a jumbo rate cut, and the 10-year rate went up. Now I've seen this year, despite the growth estimates going up, 10 years coming down, because I believe the bond market is recognizing that, as you and I talked about, energy prices will be lower, and we can have non-inflationary growth. We cut the spending, that we cut the size of government, we get more efficiency in government, and we're going to go into a good interest rate cycle.
But Scott Bessent, it seemed like that the president was conditioning lower rates on lower oil prices. That's what it seemed. I didn't see him. I know he's had some Truth Social postings about all this in the Federal Reserve. I didn't see him attacking the Fed so much on an interest rate basis. He attacked them for permitting higher inflation, which turned out not to be transitory. But it seemed like that he really wanted to keep King Dollar. He wanted to keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And at the particular moment right now, he wasn't blasting. He wasn't demanding for lower rates unless and until we get the oil prices down. Thoughts?
Look, you're exactly right on his view on the U.S. as a reserve currency. That excellent speech he gave at the Economic Club of New York, you and I were there in August. They explicitly said he wants the U.S. to remain the reserve currency. Yep. You and I know that you can be a reserve currency and the price is going to fluctuate based on the market. And as I said, he wants lower rates. He is not calling for the Fed to lower rates. He believes that if we do all the things that you and I have talked about today, if we deregulate the economy, if we get this tax bill done, if we get energy down, then rates will take care of themselves and the dollar will take care of itself.
But he insists on it being the world's reserve currency. He said he would tariff 100% some of these BRIC countries if they actually went through and created another currency. They haven't yet. But he seems pretty adamant about what I call King Dollar, but what is said keeping the dollar the world's reserve currency.
Yeah.
The dollar being the world's world reserve currency, being the reserve currency is a plus for us. Yes, the Fed didn't need our dollar to purchase oil and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's a plus. And it helps our dollar and it helps our overall economy. So us keeping that standing is vital.
Larry, I've been in the currency markets for 35 years, and I can tell you there is no alternative to the dollar.
Right.
These other countries can talk about it. They may try to take away our reserve currency status, but there is no other reserve currency on the horizon.
let's shift gears a bit. Much in the news until today, much in the news, tariffs. And Mr. Trump has had actually some success with his tariff threats, although I think he's quite serious. And at some point, we'll come back to that and tariffs will go up, not down. But how do you see, as Treasury Secretary, you're going to be a key player, according to the president. How do you see the tariff strategy right now?
Yeah, I think it's there's several different aspects to the strategy. We saw what happened with Colombia. The president threatened tariffs, and the president of Colombia not only allowed illegal immigrants back into his country, he offered to send his own plane. He threatened tariffs on, or signed an order for tariffs on Mexico and Canada over the weekend. And then on Monday, President of Mexico offered 10,000 troops at the southern border, and Justin Trudeau virtually the same thing. And this is in response to the fentanyl crisis. Also, tariffs on China. And again, this is due to the fentanyl crisis. This is not a revenue issue right now.
You know what's so crazy about what the Dems were saying? I was looking at it last night with y'all, and they was pretty much saying that, oh, they've been there, the troops been there. And I'm just like, what do you mean they've been there? How did they been there? Like, you telling me that Mexico been had troops there, Cuba would, well, I'm sorry, but Colombia was been taking back their immigrants. So why do we have such high numbers? Why do we have such high number of border crossings if we got not only our, border patrol, but Mexican soldiers? Like, like I said, it's either that they help get some of these immigrants in here, or they came and then they left and they just neglected the position.
Well, Mr. Trump seems to be moving. I mean, Steve Miller said this yesterday, but I've heard from President Trump. He seems to want to move the system towards more tariff-related revenues and fewer income tax-related revenues. And universal tariff seems to be out there, whether it's 10 or 20%, I don't know. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Larry, I think tariffs are a means to an end, and I think that end is bringing the manufacturing base back to the U.S. That, in theory, tariffs would be a shrinking ice cube, that you would tariff a country, and then as the production comes back to the U.S., the income tax, the corporate revenues, and the pay income tax goes up, and the tariff income would go down. The current account deficit goes down. Our trade deficit goes down. Mm-hmm. So tariffs are a means to an end to reshore, economic.
And like I said, you can't talk about the tariffs if you don't know about America's trade deficit. You cannot speak on the topics of tariffs if you do not know our trade deficit in the global economy. I mean, if you don't know that we're $1 trillion in the negative when it comes to trade, then yeah, you don't need to be speaking about tariffs because you truly don't understand what they're for.
Economic security in the U.S.
But he's still concerned about reciprocity and unfair trading practices.
Completely.
Yeah.
And look, we saw several things. Probably the only good thing that I can say about the COVID crisis was it was a test run for what a hot war could look like, a deeper economic war could look like. And we realized that optimal supply chains are not secure supply chains. So, we want to bring back medical supplies. We've got to bring back shipbuilding, things like that. So we know that we have a group of industries that we were very vulnerable during the COVID crisis, that places like China, the most imbalanced economy in the history of the world, most unfair trade practices in the history of the world, were not reliable suppliers. And I point everyone, there's a very good article in the Wall Street Journal today that talks about the China shock and how much worse it was for working Americans than anyone had thought.
We're really interested in an economics article, National Bureau of Economic Research. Very interesting, the China shock. Last one, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It's just in the headlines today. Elon Musk's influence on the Treasury, Doge's influence on the Treasury. You're the Treasury Secretary. What can you tell us about this?
Larry, that Elon Musk is the greatest entrepreneur of this generation. And the Doge outlook and their brief from the president, the Department of Government Efficiency, and we had the Grace Commission. You and I are old enough to remember. You were in the administration. The Grace Commission in the 80s failed.
Reagan's years.
Yep. Bill Clinton, Al Gore set up a commission on government efficiency, failed, and Doge is not going to fail, and that they are moving a lot of people's cheese here in the Capitol, and when you hear this squawking, then some status quo interest is not happy. What I will tell you that at the Treasury, our payment system is not being touched. Everything we process 1.3 billion via payments a year. There's a study being done. Can we have more accountability, more accuracy, more traceability, that the money is going where it is? But in terms of payments being stopped, that is happening upstream.
It's funny that the Treasury Secretary is pretty much saying, I have no problem with this. Like, I have no problem with this. None of the payments has been paused. This is coming from the man himself. The man himself is pretty much saying, well, what CNN and the rest of them have been reporting to you is a lie. Yeah, like I said, he just got the read only on it. He can't move payments around. He doesn't, bro. There's no payment system that's been stopped. So shout out to my man coming out here making these interviews, because I mean, let's be real. Without him coming out, y'all have been running with the same narrative. So hey, and don't worry, we got another interview with this man coming up.
The department level.
All right. Well, I just essentially you're saying you're cooperating on this government downsizing with Elon Musk and Doge.
What I'm saying is that at Treasury, our motto is to move deliberately and fix things.
I like that. Okay. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, thank you for.
All right, let's hear another one he did with Bloomberg. Well, Bloomberg. Yeah, Bloomberg. Yeah, Bloomberg. All right, let's get into it.
Thank you for joining me.
So good to see you.
Mr. Secretary, we are inside the cash room at the Treasury Department. It is almost impossible to overstate how important the work that is done in this building is to the U.S. financial system. Yet right now, there is widespread concern about the Doge team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasuries market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the Doge team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his.
Hold on, and the Doge team is 2 Treasury employees. So these 19-year-olds that they're complaining about, 19, 22, is actually employees of the Treasury. You see how they kind of skip out on information? So shout out my man Scott, U.S. Treasury Secretary, the guy who would know this.
His final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read only. They are looking, they can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvements. So we make.
Yeah. Let me just.
Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read only. They are looking, they can make no changes. It is an
They are looking, they can make no changes. Just like we said. I mean, look, man, I've been said it. If the U.S. Treasury Secretary is saying it too, and y'all still running with this, I don't know what to tell you, man. At this point, you just want to believe anything. Stupid. But hey, that's you.
Operational program to suggest improvements. So we make 1.3 billion payments a year. And this is 2 employees who are working with a group of longstanding employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
And if they ask for,
And shout out Cultural Leotard. She says, keep giving these receipts so I can send them to people in Chicago who don't believe they in a bubble. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy.
request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they could make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS.
And here's the thing, though, so scary is that once we see these payments, we make our complaints and we send it back to Congress. And then what if they choose not to take them off? What if they try to give us a BS ass reason why they didn't take them off? So, like I said, like Congress is supposed to be the one being held accountable for not catching this. But instead of them coming to us like, oh, we're sorry, we should have been caught this. No, we're mad that somebody caught us. We're mad that somebody looked into it. And we're so mad that we're going to frame it as if they done took your personal information and have access to the purse. That's how mad we are. We're just going to frame it as for something that it's not.
There would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS. Do you know what kind of access the team has to IRS data or individual taxpayer data?
Well, I'm glad you asked that too, because look, the IRS, the privacy issue is one of the biggest issues. And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaks out of there. The IRS systems are quite poor. When I started in college in 1980, I learned to program in COBOL. I think there are 12 different systems at the IRS that still run on COBOL. But as of now, there is no engagement at the IRS.
And if they request that access, would you sign off on that request?
They haven't, so we'll take that when it comes to it. I think there is a lot to do there. But the president was elected with a big agenda, and to the extent that getting the IRS in better shape is part of that, sure. Because look, with the IRS, what am I concerned about? I am concerned about collections. I'm concerned about privacy, and I'm concerned that the system is robust and customer service.
But do you think that if they ask for access, that is something you would consider signing off on?
There are a lot of things I would consider, but look, we're in the middle of the tax filing season right now. We even, with the government buyouts that expire at midnight tonight, we have mandated that the IRS customer-facing employees, that they're not eligible for that until May 15th. So I don't imagine anything's going to go on at the IRS until then or beyond.
Elon Musk just half an hour ago tweeted out that Treasury needs to stop approving certain payments. Has your staff tried to block any payments here at Treasury?
We have not, and I'm glad you asked that too. Nope. And just to put it in perspective, Elon and I are completely aligned in terms of cutting waste and increasing accountability and transparency.
Hey, yo, so y'all really can't say anything. What? So the U.S. Treasury Secretary is aligned with Elon Musk. He don't even care. He don't care. So why do y'all care so much? Like, that's what I'm saying. Y'all looking kind of guilty. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that kickback, I mean, maybe some of y'all getting kickback from teaching atheism in other countries. Maybe some of y'all getting that kickback from transgender operas. Maybe y'all getting kickback from Sesame Street in Iraq. But guess what, man? It's gonna come to the light. We're gonna find out who y'all are. Or y'all can keep it hidden and y'all can fix it and make sure y'all never do it again. Turn a new leaf. That could always be a thing.
Transparency for the American people. I believe that this Doge program in my adult life is one of the most important audits of government or changes to government structure we have seen. That when I was in my 20s, we had the Grace Report, and there's some great suggestions.
And shout out Big Wave Dave. He says, "Set, this guy's making ears bleed." Also, where's the call in? I got you, Big Wave Dave. And hold on, my brother, hold on. Let him cook. He's releasing some high value information here.
That came out of that never implemented under Clinton and Gore. I think it was to government efficiency or reduce government. Nothing happened. So President Trump came in, there's a big agenda, and I think that there are gigantic cost savings for the American people here. And I think it's unfortunate the way the media wants to lampoon what is going on. These are highly trained professionals. This is not some roving band going around doing things. This is methodical, and it is going to yield big savings.
At any point, would you heed what Musk just tweeted and stop payments from coming through Treasury?
Look, most of that happens above us. That it comes from the departments and the agencies. We are doing a complete review. And I want to emphasize to you and everyone watching that it is an operational review. It is not an ideological review. We want to make sure that the American people are getting the best practices. And I don't think that's happening right now.
The systems here at Treasury, they're...
All right, guys, and I went ahead and added the call-in link in the community tab. Remember, this is a call-in show, which I had to be reminded of, sadly. But yes, it is a call-in show. So if you are a member, you already know what it is. You can just go ahead and hop in there. And if you're not a member, please, I'm going to go ahead and do y'all a favor. $2 for any naysayers. And if you're not a member, just $2. You can go ahead and hop on the call-in line. Let's go.
Known to be a little antiquated, but very, very sensitive, but also they're working. I'm hearing, at Bloomberg, we hear a lot about investors being concerned that this could hit markets in some way or start to cause a loss of confidence. What, as a longtime hedge fund investor, do you have a response to those concerns?
People shouldn't be concerned. That at Treasury, we move deliberately and we fix things. That's the way we work. So everyone should know that all the payments are going to be made. They're going to be in good order. And at the end of this review, there are going to be substantial savings for the American taxpayer.
Mr. Secretary, you have experience in currency markets and now...
Economic Club of New York speech in August when he reemphasized the importance of maintaining the dollar reserve currency status. But let's think about what does a strong dollar mean? It really means four things. One, that when we think about a fiat currency, a piece of paper is credibility. So a strong dollar is credibility and a rule of law that is backing it up. Two, it means a composite price on the screen, the Bloomberg Currency Index, that is the dollar moving up against that. Three, it is a bilateral price. So what's important to remember is the dollar is either weak or strong versus something else. So we want the dollar to be strong. What we don't want is other countries to weaken their currencies to manipulate their trade. And then fourth, that we want to have the best policies that create the environment for a strong dollar.
Let's talk about other nations and how they manage their currencies. The president has asked for a tariff study from several of his cabinet officers or incoming cabinet officers due April 1st. And the Treasury piece of that is to assess how to handle when foreign nations manipulate their currencies. Do you see any evidence of manipulation in foreign exchange rate markets right now?
Well, we'll wait till the study comes out, but I think just intuitively, you and I could agree that when you see the accumulation of these large surpluses, that there is not a free-form trading system that's going. It could be due to the level of the currency. It could be due to trade restrictions. It could be due to some interest rate repression policy. So it could be any of those.
Are there any countries that you're monitoring or watching specifically right now? I know the president in the past has labeled China as a currency manipulator. Do you see any other nations that need to be closely watched?
Well, I think we'll see on April 1st. And as you know, that China is the most imbalanced unbalanced economy in the history of the world, and they are in a deep recession right now. They're experiencing deflation, and they're trying to export their way out of that. And we can't allow that. We want fair trade, and part of
And shout out Cultural Leotard. She says, anti-Trumpers, this is what average citizens voted for. The swamp to be drained, to free up our 40 hours from making everyone else rich, not MAGA. I'm gonna be real with you. This is what the people voted for. Like, yes, there are people who are hardline Donald Trump supporters, which is MAGA. Like, trust me, agree with this man on every single point, even to Israel. So trust me, I can't be MAGA because I'm not pro-Israel. So hey, it is what it is. But guess what? This is what the common American people voted for. Not all 75 million of people who voted for Trump was MAGA. Some of these people were just voting on the reason that, I ain't gonna lie, culture just written out for you. So shout out her. All right, and now let's keep it going.
Part of that is the taking a strong position on the currency and the terms of trade.
Yesterday, the Treasury Department had its first quarterly refunding since you were confirmed. Do you have any plans of looking at how the Treasury's debt issuance strategy comes together?
Well, I think the good news is that the trajectory of the borrowing is dropping. So I was very happy to see that it's one of the few good surprises I was left by the previous administration. So the trajectory is good, and the government's well financed the end of the third quarter, and I believe that as it becomes apparent that the president's agenda is working, that we'll see a great deal of non-inflationary growth. And I think that will help us calibrate what the debt policy should be. But I don't foresee any changes in the issuance for the foreseeable future.
And what about the process? Do you think that TBAC is the most effective way of getting feedback from markets?
Well, I want to thank all the members of TBAC who are here this week. They are a very elite group. I think that maybe over time, we need to think about the style of engagement. It has turned into more of a research think tank than direct market engagement, and that's going to require some changes from both sides. I believe when TBAC was originally started, it was supposed to be a market feedback mechanism, a little less of a think tank, and we've been assigning research projects, so I think there's some recalibration on both sides, but I think that whatever we do, TBAC will still exist.
Mr. Secretary, you said yesterday in an interview that the Trump administration is more focused on long-term yields than what the Federal Reserve is.
And now, before we get into this whole conversation of long-term yields, all right, let's get back over to our man Trump, as he delivers this whole remarks at the National Player Breakfast. About to say National Players Ball. Mm-hmm. Cool. And shout out James Foley paying for UTZ if he grows a pair and does